Like when I'm leaving Philadelphia Airport, why do I have to take off my shoes when nothing like that's ever happened here? What's the explanation for that? Now we can't go to the bathroom an hour before the plane's coming in from an international flight. How's that going to work? Why do I have to be inconvenienced?
And why would you identify all people from, 6 or 7 nations in the world as being, from 14 nations in the world as being immediately suspect? The fact is, when you cast that broad a net of suspicion, you can't focus. You need to focus on the people who actually behave suspiciously.
But let's be clear what's being said. We're saying that in terms of screening, and that's the better term to use, we're talking about screening. What are the factors that add up to the point of saying we've got to give you more and more of a look? Now, certainly, if you have been in Yemen within the last 10 years, strikes me that you went there for a particular purpose. And maybe we ought to be giving you more of a look.
I have to chime in here. The first problem is that was a beautiful way of saying profiling, because that's exactly what
that's your
word.
word.
The second thing is,
That's your word. Okay.
The second, no, it's profiling. That's what it is.
That's
Definition,
your word for
profiling, exactly what he said. But the other problem that I have is that people go to Yemen for legitimate purposes. Everyone that goes to Yemen to even study Islam, let's even take it to that version. To study Islam, do not go there to study how to be a terrorist or how to be an extremist. Everyone that goes there does
shake down 65-year-old grandmother from Iowa.
And you know why it works with Yemen? You know why it works with Yemen? Because there are people that I know that studied in Yemen that are not of that mindset. That is a positive evidence that everyone goes there is not involved in that.
But if
most people that go there are involved in that.
It's not unusual. It really isn't unusual. What is being highlighted about Yemen, no, honestly it is. What is being highlighted is that country, Yemen, and tied to some fools, let's be very clear, some religious fools. They're not spreading or promulgating Islam. They are terrorists. Islam and terrorism is two different things.
Well, then how do you
two different things.
But how do you differentiate it? That's the problem.
How do you get to the fool?
How you get to the fools?
Yeah, how do you
through
get to
intelligence. Through intelligence. And that intelligence doesn't come through painting with a broad brush anyone that ever had any contact with Yemen. And let me tell you why I say that. I haven't had contact with Yemen, but I travel to Saudi Arabia probably about twice a year. To Mecca, Medina, Jeddah, it doesn't even matter, twice a year. There are times that I'm stopped. And I'm stopped when I'm coming through the airport, pulled over by customs, and somebody who's trying to ask me about my citizenship. I was born here. They can't even speak English. But you're going to question my citizenship based upon what? If in fact you don't have any indication that I've been involved in anything that indicates I'm involved in extremism, if in fact you know what my background is, if in fact you know you're tracking me because I have the new passport which has a little chip in it so you know where the hell I'm going, if I'm not fitting any of those particular factors or criteria, why is it? Why is it that someone like me, and I'm going to tell you, the first thing I say to them is be very, very careful, because I will definitely sue you, I can't say the word, if something in fact occurs.
Let's get some
without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Because they asked you a question.
But the other option is...
No, I won't sue them because they asked me a question. I sue them because they pull me off as opposed to someone else. And if I'm walking with sometimes I'm there doing business. If I'm walking with someone who I have just tried to negotiate a contract with, we both are coming from Saudi Arabia because we're talking about doing business there. I'm walking and all of a sudden they're saying, can you sit over here? And then he goes off. Goes about him, and I'm sitting beside. I would have to say,
if a guy looking like me goes into a high drug area where there are only minorities, and I am there in an SUV, and you tell me that the police who are trying to prevent the drug trade aren't going to look and say, come here, what are you doing here?
And that would be ridiculous.
No, it would not.
Because there are plenty of reasons why you could be
in that neighborhood. So if he's in the Badlands, you don't think that the police in
it's
that
not
area
reasonable for the police officer to say, what's this guy doing here?
No, it's not. You know, I know someone who used to work at Temple University, and her most direct way home was through some pretty bad streets. She would get stopped every
But we have 20-second time out. Let me answer your question.
I got to take a time out. I got to take a time out. We're going to come back. We're going to have more of their comments, and we're going to have more of yours as well. So if you want to join in, you can email me. If not, stick around and see what happens in the next segment.
Lynn Doyle's jewelry provided by David Craig Diamonds and Fine Jewelry, Newtown, Pennsylvania.
Transportation for It's Your Call guests provided by Preferred Car and Limousine.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Lynn Doyle, and our topic on this edition of It's Your Call is scared in the air. Are you worried about flying, or do you feel relatively safe every time you get on a plane? What do you think about all of these new restrictions that have been put into effect as a result of that attempted bombing on Christmas Day of a flight that was coming into Detroit? If you want to talk to us about it, you can email me and let us know, or come on to Facebook or MySpace and comment on my personal page. Right before we took the break, a lot of heated discussion going on here. I'm sure it's generated a lot of debate there in your homes as well. We're talking about the use of profiling when you are trying to protect people who are flying around the world. Of course, Tariq Al-Shabazz takes a look at this and says, any kind of profiling is bad. Someone like Ed Terzansky, though, on the other hand, says that it is a law enforcement tool that is used not only on the airports, but also when it comes to fighting crime. We mentioned the Badlands. For those of you who might not know what that is, the name pretty much says it all, Badland. And it's not an area where typically, Mary Catherine, that you see a lot of Caucasians unless they are there for illicit purposes. So how is it different? Why not use profiling?
Well, first of all, you need to understand that profiling doesn't just mean racial profiling. The term profiling means putting together a profile of someone who would be suspected of something. If we're talking about the Christmas Day bomber, the fact that he bought his ticket with cash going one way, transatlantic, with no checked baggage and not a heavy coat when he's on his way to Detroit in December, those are all things. You don't
I'm not in the intelligence business because I'm in television. But to me, that's a lot of red
those are
flags.
factors.
Right.
Those are
So
factors.
I would say,
That's
wait
different.
a minute.
That is a profile.
Well, I wouldn't care what color he was, what sex he was, those things by itself, what religion he
Exactly.
is, says to me, take a look at this guy.
Exactly. That is a profile. That is a proper use of profiling. That is someone you stop and you question and you search. And you see if you have
why do we have disagreement?
But here's the problem. Here's the problem.
People
People want to replace that long checklist of things you look at with what country he comes from or whether he's Muslim.
No, what they want to do is they want to replace it with intelligence, which Tariq correctly said. We need to use intelligence because there's 4 billion people in this world, and we got to figure out who's going to fit into the category that we need to look at more closely. So we're going to use intelligence to say these 14 countries, whatever they are, where all the terrorists have come from these 14 countries. That's one red flag.
All the terrorists have come.
Well,
from
I'm not. Whatever the number is, and we're going to go step by step by step, and then it's going to filter it down. You're sitting here yelling and screaming. Quite frankly, rightfully so. I agree with you because you were angry, inconvenienced, and insulted. All good points, okay? But the other option is to take every person who flies and inconvenience them and anger them and insult them so that we don't look like we're profiling.
Well, then take everybody.
Not.
But what I'm saying is this.
Yeah, that's what you want to
do. This is a different. Absolutely, either all or nothing.
Of course.
What
exactly.
I'm saying is, if we can get back to the analogy that Ed talked about the Badlands, the fact that you would have a Caucasian, young, senior type of individual drive their car through the Badlands at a certain time of night, to me, is not enough. If you're watching him and he stops at a corner where other people are, and then someone